right, then let's go to the last chapter, which is the navigation on the website. So let me re-record. And what I'm going to do is go and open the SSEP main page. And I'm going to share my screen. And there it is. So does everybody see the homepage for SSEP? Okay. So let me tell you, there are actually two websites. The first one, where we are now, is the main website where all the resources are available for you to do this program. The way that you tell that you're on the main website is that the banner, the big banner, has the International Space Station above a blue Earth. And what you'll notice is a whole bunch of buttons over here. There's 2 rows of navigation buttons. Now, let me tell you that this website has a bunch of content on it, because not only is Mission 21 starting now, but we still have Mission 19 and 20 going in different phases of their life cycle. So this website has to support space flight operations for all of those communities, for all of those missions. And so let me tell you that your concentration is coming up to speed on the microgravity curricular pieces and designing your experiments and writing your proposals. And I can tell you right now that nothing on the second navigation row has anything to do with what your focus is. Nothing on the second navigation row has anything to do with experiment design and proposal writing. But just for completeness, let me tell you what this second row is, and then we're going to officially blow off half the content of this website. So the first thing is, if you want to read over 1,500 media articles written about this program to date, you can go to the SSEP in the news page, and what you'll see mission by mission are all the articles for, well, Mission 20 is, we're still just kind of getting started, but let me show you Mission 19. So Mission 19, here are the communities engaged in Mission 19, and here are all of the media articles currently for Mission 19. Mission 19 hasn't flown yet, so a lot of the press coverage happens once the flight is about to take place. So if I go to Mission 17, for instance, let's see how many media articles there are. So you can see there's a whole lot, community by community. They're all here, over 1,500 media articles. If you want to read about our strategic partners, you can. If you want to read about our national partners, you can. If you want to read the bio of every one of the Step 2 National Review Board members that selected the flight experiments, well, here are all of the reviewers just for mission. I mean, it's a big review board. This is just for Mission 18. But also, I should point out to community program directors that when you hover over review boards, the first sub-tab says, is a page that says guidance for setting up a Step 1 review board in your community. So all of the guidance for how you set up your Step 1 review board to pick your 3 finalists is right there. You can download logos and banners. You can go to our organizational website to see about our other programs. You can go to our international website to see what we're doing internationally. So all of that stuff has nothing to do with your designing microgravity experiments and writing proposals. So is everybody with me on how we just blew off the second row of navigation? Okay. Now, the first row of navigation, let me say that there are 3 separate areas of different importance. There's the first 2 buttons, which you need right out of the gate. So after you've done this Zoom video conference, the first 2 buttons are what you go to right away. The next 4 buttons, flight opportunities, teacher resources, contact, and community network website, are the 4 buttons that you're going to use on a daily basis to access all of the curricular resources. And then the final 2 buttons are interesting, but not as important as the 4 that you're using on a day-to-day basis. The final 2, Well, there's an SSEP blog, so you might want to go and read some blog posts and go to the archive. And if you're thinking about going to the conference, sending a delegation to the conference, you can go to the conference button and you can, for instance, go to the 2025 conference and you can read about what the conference experience is like at Kennedy Space Center. And it provides you an understanding of what the expectation is for student presentations. This is a very real conference, and it talks about how you have 6 minutes to deliver a PowerPoint presentation on your research with 2 minutes of Q&A, and it tells you everything you need to know about the conference. So let me again go over this. In the first navigation row, there are 3 different areas of buttons. The home and more on SSEP page are what you get to right away. The flight opportunities, teacher resources, contact and community network website buttons, those 4 buttons are what you're going to use on a daily basis to access the curriculum. And the last 2 buttons, the blog is very interesting and the conference site is very interesting. Everybody with me on that? Does that all make sense? Okay, so now what we're going to do is go through these buttons again with a little more flesh on the bones. So if I go to the home page, you'll notice that the home page says this is an executive summary of the program. It is a summary of SSEP. And so when I, in chapter 2, provided an overview of the Student Spaceflight Experiments program, and in chapter 1, I talked about STEM education and the importance for students to gain an authentic experience so they understand what scientists and engineers do. Well, this executive summary is a summary of how the program works. And then if you then go to the More on SSEP page and you click on that, you'll notice it's actually named More on SSEP, a deeper dive, which goes into more detail beyond just the summary on the home page. This puts flesh on the bones. And once you read the home page and the More on SSEP page, it will strongly reinforce everything I said about how this program works, and then you're ready to move forward. And so now we get to the 4 buttons where it's your day-to-day access to the curricular resources. So under flight opportunities, you'll see multiple missions listed that are in progress in various phases of their life cycle. But your mission is mission 21. So forget about these other missions, just concentrate on mission 21. And if I hover over mission 21, you see 3 subpages show up. These 3 subpages and the Mission 21 main page are 4 pages that are part of your curriculum. And if I were to go to the Mission 21 main page by clicking on it, it provides a summary of what we know about Mission 21, the spacecraft that's going to take the experiments to space, likely a SpaceX vehicle, the spacecraft for the return, how many experiments are flying, where the experiments are going to be conducted. But you see a lot of red TBDs here. TBD stands for to be done, because we don't know a lot of this information yet. So as we get information, we will populate the Mission 21 main page. But if we go back to flight opportunities and hover over the Mission 21 main page, let's look at the subpages. I told you that everything I talked about on this video conference is on the website. So let's see where it is. So the first one is the critical timeline page. And this is an outgrowth of chapter 3 of this video conference where I talked about the timeline. This is a bulleted list of all of the milestone dates and deadlines for when your proposals are due to step 1 review, when the 3 finalists are due to step 2 review, when the experiment is selected. So here, this first phase listed here is the experiment design phase. And once the experiment is selected, we move into the flight operations phase timeline with all the milestones. So this critical timeline dictates how Mission 21 proceeds. If I now go back to the flight opportunities button, Mission 21, and I go to the mini laboratory operations page, and I sent yesterday 3 of 4 program start emails that are critically important to all of you It went to the 3 community program directors at USF, and those critical emails need to get to you ASAP. And what it includes, email number 1 includes all of the user IDs and passwords that you need. So here is Mission 21 to ISS. And since I opened it not too long ago, you don't see an entry place for a password, but this is password protected. And what it's saying is that the mini laboratory used for Mission 21 is a rigid tube with not clamps, but valves. But we're working on the Mission 21 mini laboratory operations page right now because it's a completely new mini lab that does virtually the same thing as the old mini lab. So what we're saying here is, for now, just go to the Mission 20 mini laboratory operations page, because the old mini lab operation is nearly identical to the new mini lab operation. So if we go to the Mission 20 mini lab operations page and I walk you through mini lab operations, what it will show you are the 3 configurations of the mini lab. So you've got a 1 volume with no clamps, 2 volumes with 1 clamp, 3 volumes with 2 clamps. And it provides you an understanding of the 3 configurations, the type 1, the type 2, and type 3. And then it provides you examples of experiments that are appropriate for a type 1, a 1 volume mini lab, a type 2, a 2 volume mini lab, or a type 3, a 3 volume mini lab. So it gives you examples of experiments that are appropriate. It then provides you a section saying, you're getting the real flight hardware, right? You're not sending your fluids and solids to Kennedy Space Center for some technician to add it to the flight hardware. You're assembling, filling, sealing, and shipping the flight hardware to Houston. You're getting the flight hardware back from Houston. You're doing the harvesting and analysis. So that's what's in this section. And then the next section tells you the 5 days that you can ask astronauts to do something. So you can only ask astronauts to do something with your experiment on the day of arrival, 2 days after arrival, 14 days before departure, 5 days before departure, and 2 days before departure. So your experiment has to be designed with those critical interaction days in mind. It also tells you what you can ask the astronauts to do and what you cannot ask the astronauts to do. It provides you all of the dimensions and volumes for the mini lab. It tells you what you can fly and what you cannot fly. If you want to fly something radioactive, that ain't happening. If you want to fly concentrated sulfuric acid, that ain't happening. If you want to fly a biological with a biosafety level 2 rating or higher, that ain't happening. And so you need to understand what you can fly and what you can't fly. And then you come down here to, and like, you can't fly human samples. You can't fly due to the ethical use of animals. You cannot fly vertebrates. So there's a lot in here in terms of what you can and cannot fly. And then there's a section on constraints due to the flight timeline, which says, hey, you need to turn your mini lab in 2.5 weeks typically before launch, and the launch could be delayed, which means you likely want to turn your experiment in an inactive state, and it'll take 24 to 72 hours for return shipping to your community moving through Earth gravity, so you likely want to deactivate your experiments before deorbit, and why 75% of the experiments are biological in nature. That's covered here. Then there's the thermal, the temperature that you can expect from shipping from your community to Houston, storage in Houston, handover to NASA, the temperature on Crew Dragon, the temperature on the International Space Station, the temperature back home to Earth, the temperature back to you. You probably need to understand what the thermal controls are with regard to the entire flight path from your community back to your community. And also, if you're doing biologicals, there's a section on how to sterilize biologicals, because you probably don't want fungi or molds hitchhiking along that can grow and destroy your experiment. So again, the reinforcing point here is this is where you start before you go and start thinking about what science experiment you want to do, because this page is the operating manual for the mini laboratory with all the engineering and technology constraints, and it tells you what you can do and what you cannot do in terms of a science experiment. Does everybody understand that? And now if we go to Flight Opportunities Mission 21, and we go to the Mission Patch Art and Design Competition, well, this is for all of the design and art and even history teachers that will be involved in the Mission Patch competitions. So this is really not for you, but it provides an overview of what a mission patch is that we are going to be sent by you. And it talks about the community engagement objectives. We'll fly up to 2 patches, and it provides you an understanding of the minimum student engagement for us to fly a patch. So art, design, and history teachers, this is the page where they go to understand everything about the Mission Patch Art and Design competition. So again, you've got 4 curricular pages here. You've got the Mission 21 main page and its 3 subpages. Everybody with me on that so far in terms of navigation? Okay, now we go to the teacher resources page, where there is a main teacher resources page and 5 subpages. So there's the flight experiment design competition page, the designing the flight experiment page, the document library, and the 2 teachers how to move forward page, and a very robust frequently asked questions section. So the teacher resources main page and its 5 subpages are 6 more pages of your curriculum. Okay, so you've got these 6 as well. Now let me tell you that the teacher resources main page is going to be a summary of all of your resources, including not only the 5 pages below it, but also the Mission 21 page and the subpages. So the teacher resources page is, hey, this is really our starting point to understand all the resources available to us for this program. So I'm going to go to the teacher resources main page here. And I'm also going to point out the 3rd button at the top, which says contact. And the contact button, let me just go to the contact button really fast. It's real simple. It's like, if you have a question, you enter it here and you hit submit. That's what the contact button is about. So if I go back to the teacher resources main page, I click on the main button, what it will say here is, hey, there's technical assistance. If students and faculty members have questions, you can send it to us via the contact button in the navigation banner, which you just saw, and automatically that written question will go to the entire flight operations team, and they will know who needs to answer that question, which might be a toxicologist at Rhodium or NASA. We try to have the answers within 24 hours, but if we have to send it to a toxicologist, we're at their mercy in terms of how fast they get back to us. But most of the questions don't have to, the vast majority, overwhelming majority, do not need to go to a toxicologist. Then the second section provides all of the web page flavor of the curriculum. There is a second flavor of the curriculum, which are the documents that are downloadable in the document library. So you've got web pages that are part of the curriculum and documents in the document library. So if we go to the second section, this website, where we see all of the web pages of the curriculum, what you'll notice is there is the flight experiment design competition page, a 1-sentence summary and a hot link to it. The designing the flight experiment page, a 1-sentence summary and a hot link to it, 2 sentences here. There's the Mission 21 main page. There's the Mission 21 critical timeline page. There's the Mission 21 mini laboratory operations page. And you don't care about Mission 20 or Mission 19. But the pages that I just summarized are also accessible from the teacher resources main button, because if you hover over it, well, there's the flight experiment design competition page, the designing the flight experiment page, the document library, 2 teachers how to move forward, and the FAQ. So there's the flight, so here are those web pages right here summarized on the website. Now let's talk about the first 2. I'm not going to go there, but I'm going to talk about them. The flight experiment design competition page provides an overview of how the competition works. That's important for you to know. Here's something really key. The designing the flight experiment page provides you an understanding of the storyline I did yesterday. It provides an understanding of classic experiment design where you're studying something as a system with an environment, that you want to keep the variables constant but change one, the independent variable, that the independent variable makes itself known through the essential question that you originally asked that defined the experiment. It then says what variable plays a critical role in virtually anything but is taken for granted. Well, that's gravity. It talks about how gravity works. It talks about how, well, maybe if we go into space, we can change gravity enough so that we can do this experiment. It takes you to the top of Jeff's Mountain, 47 times higher than Mount Everest, same height as the International Space Station. It talks about the astronauts are weightless, which is what microgravity is, but at the same distance above the Earth, I still weigh almost the same as what I weigh on Earth. It takes you to the top of the Empire State Building. It shows you that in a freely falling laboratory, everything will behave as if gravity's turned completely off. It talks about the ping pong balls and how the International Space Station is in free fall. That is all in the designing the flight experiment page. So you can go back there and reinforce that understanding. And then, as I said, the Mission 21 main page, critical timeline page, and mini laboratory operations page. Does everybody understand that so far with regard to the document library? Now, if we move down to, I'm sorry, with regard to section 1 and 2 on the two teachers how to move forward page. I'm sorry, let me say it again. I'm ahead of myself. We are on the teacher and student resources main page. All of the resources are listed there. The first section is technical assistance through the contact page. Then the second section are all the web page flavors of the curriculum that I just went through. And now we're getting to the next section. But before I get to section 3, everybody understands what we just covered in section 1 and 2, correct? Okay. Section 3 is the document library, and it provides you a summary of what the document library does. It is the central library for all downloadable documents. And then the two teachers how to move forward page is summarized here. But let me tell you that the two teachers how to move forward page plays a critical role in this program. Let me explain why. I can tell you where the curricular resources are. I can show you the Mission 21 main page and its 3 subpages. I can show you the teacher resources main page and its 5 subpages. So now you have access to all of that. But the question that you might ask is, well, okay, what is the order in which I do things? What is the recipe in a bulletized way to walk through this program so I know when the curricular resources are needed? And so that is what the two teachers how to move forward page is all about. So I'm going to skip the document library for a moment, and I'm going to go to the two teachers how to move forward page, which I can access here or in the navigation above. And what it says here is it provides an understanding of how to navigate the website. So this is how you move forward. You are your own teachers because you're self-directed learners. So this page is not to your faculty or advisors. This is to you. So the first section says the first thing out of the gate to gain an understanding of the larger landscape, you just carefully read the home page and the more on SSEP page, which is what I told you to do, those 2 first buttons, right? Then in purple text, it says, and let me just read this paragraph to you. However, teachers need to concentrate on getting students moving on experiment design, which means you need to concentrate on you getting moving on experiment design. So here is the key. All the information that specifically addresses the design of student experiments are all accessed through a careful read of the teacher and student resources page, the link labeled teacher resources in the top navigation banner. That was the main page I just took you through. And then it says, think of that page as your Grand Central Station for SSEP experiment design in the classroom. One of its subpages is the page you are reading now, the Two Teachers How to Move Forward page. And now section 2 says, a proposed list of tasks and activities for SSEP launch and management provided in a reasonable order. So the first thing it tells you is read the teacher and student resources page, and as directed, explore the links on that page. They're subpages. So it's telling you the teacher and student resources page is where you start after you read the home page and the More on SSEP page. And then bullet by bullet, it walks you through the entire program. And every time you need a curricular element that is a web page or a curricular element that is a document, it gives you a link to that curricular element. So it walks you through the entire program. And there's a section 3 here called important advice to teachers. So that's really important advice to you. And I'm going to skip to one that we talked about. It says, we urge all student teams to reach out to national researchers using Google Scholar Search. So if you can't get a researcher advisor at USF that is an expert in the science disciplinary focus of your experiment, I told you yesterday that one way to do that is to go to Google Scholar Search, put keywords in the search box that represent your experiment, go to the top of page 1 and get the authors, send some of those authors a nice email asking if they can be your researcher advisor. And if you send that email to 20 such people, all you need is one to say yes. That's where this is covered. So everybody got that? Now, if I go here to, now the last one that I want to take you to is the document library. We are in the process right now of updating all of the Mission 20 to Mission 21 documents. There are some changes, not much. Everything in red has not yet been updated to Mission 21. Everything in green has. Okay, so you can see down here, there's some reds that still need to be done here, a few. We're going to get to some of them today to get that uploaded. But let me just tell you what's on the document library. Section 1 is general program documents. And if you want to download a 3-page overview of Mission 21 at a glance, it provides you an overview of Mission 21. The next document you can download if you want is the congressional briefing document that we leave behind on Capitol Hill when we brief congressional staffers. But this document concentrates on the strategic STEM objectives of this program and the impact to date. And then if we go down to section 2, this is general multimedia. So you can watch videos of overviews of this program. So there are video overviews of SSEP. You can go to Scientific American Frontiers and read a feature article called Not Your Grandma's Science Competition. There's even a PowerPoint on Mission 21. So if you want to promote what you're doing in Mission 21, you can. If you become ambassadors to go to high school classrooms or middle school classrooms as role models to talk to students about what it's like to design an experiment for operation on the International Space Station, you could bring that PowerPoint, or your faculty can show that PowerPoint to other students at the university to get more students engaged in the program. And then if you go to the Student Proposers Resource Library, here are the documents here. There is 2 students getting started with experiment design. So it gives you a background on, okay, experiment design, that's good. Here is that microgravity science background document I talked to you about, which has an overview of 9 separate science disciplines appropriate for microgravity research and why. Here is the accompanying microgravity case studies document I talked about that has examples of experiments in each of those 9 science disciplines. So this is one of the 5 ways that you can get ideas for a microgravity experiment. This next one tells you how you use fixatives like glutaraldehyde or formaldehyde to kill and preserve biology and shut an experiment down before deorbit. Then here is that master list of experiment samples I talked about, which lists hundreds and hundreds of fluids and solids, typically used for microgravity experiment design. So it's also one of the 5 ways to get ideas for a microgravity experiment. And here is what's called the problematic samples list. This one is from our old launch services provider. Our new launch services provider is working on theirs, so we have to swap that out. But the problematic samples list is important. And so the NanoRacks Mini Lab is a silicone tube with end caps and clamps. And there are lots of fluids and solids, like concentrated acids or bases, that will adversely interact with the materials that make up the mini lab. For instance, in the worst possible case, you could dissolve the mini lab, which would expose the fluids and solids to the crew compartment, which could put the crew at risk. So the problematic samples list is the no-no list. If you come up with fluids and solids for your experiment, once you do that, you want to go to the problematic samples list and see whether or not any of them appear there, because if they do, you really should not use them, because it will likely not pass flight safety review due to the adverse interaction with the mini lab. So it's the no-no list. And then you've got the proposal guide itself, which is the template for a proposal. There's a background guide for teachers, which again is you if you're self-directed learners. There's a background guide for student proposers. And in both of these background guides is the proposal evaluation rubric that is the grading system for proposals. And then there's a document here called the required specificity for description of experiment samples. So remember, your experiment is going to the toxicology office at Johnson Space Flight for toxicologist review to make sure that your experiment does not pose a risk to the astronauts or crew. And you have to describe with specificity your experiment samples. Where did they come from? You have to add a safety data sheet, an SDS, with regard to that defines the safety or hazard nature of the experiment samples. But this is only done for the flight team once the flight experiment is selected. So does everybody understand the documents on the document library in principle? Okay. The last bullet, so again, let me just summarize. Right out of the gate, you read the homepage as an executive summary. You then go to the More on SSEP page to put flesh on the bones. And the 4 pages you use on an ongoing basis for experiment design and proposal writing are flight opportunities, teacher resources, contact and community network, website. Under flight opportunities, it's Mission 21 and its 3 subpages that are the 4 pages of interest. Under teacher resources, it's the teacher resources main page and the 5 subpages of interest. The teacher resources main page is a summary of all your resources, and that's where you go first after you read the homepage and More on SSEP page. And the two teachers how to move forward page walks you through that entire process, bullet by bullet by bullet, so you don't have to worry about where do I go first. Okay, so, and then the contact button is how you submit questions to the flight operations team. So far, so good? So now let's finish up by going to the community network website button. If you're on most of the pages on the website, like the home page or More on SSEP page, no, not More on SSEP, but the home page. On most pages on the website, you'll see a column on the right with a bunch of stuff. Here are the countdown clocks to the launch of your experiment on Mission 21, the Mission 20 and Mission 19 countdown clocks, and how much time has elapsed since the Mission 17 experiments returned and the Mission 18 experiments have returned. But at the very top of the right column is a little banner that says Jump to SSEP Community Network Site. You'll also notice that there is a button, the 4th button that I was talking about, called Community Network Website. If you click on this banner, the Community Network site, it will take you right to that website. If you click on the Community Network Website button, it's going to take you to an intermediate page, and it's going to say, are you sure you want to leave the main SSEP website before you jump? And the answer is yes, I do. So I'm going to click on this. And now I'm at the second SSEP website. And the way that you can tell is you notice that the banner has changed from the International Space Station above a blue Earth to the Space Shuttle Endeavour against the blue sky and clouds. So this website is dedicated to all the communities that have ever participated in this program. The main website that we came from is got all of the resources to do the program. And by the way, you can go back to the main website using the main website button here, or this little banner that says back to SSEP main website. So there's symmetry between the two sites. So if I go down to the bottom here, you'll see a map of the world and all of the communities that have participated in SSEP. I shifted it over because you see that Ukraine is participating in their 5th mission with mission 21, despite the war. 1,000 students across Ukraine, Poland, Germany, Czechoslovakia are participating in this program because the Ukrainian students have scattered across Europe. And they're still doing this program despite the war. And if you now click on this little plus sign under the map, mission by mission, you will see every community that has ever participated with a link to their community profile. And all of the communities in green have participated more than once. And so if I go to the top and I look at mission 19, for instance, Hillsborough County, Florida, which is not too far from you, has participated in 12 missions since program inception. So they have their own space program. They're doing this every year. If I now go to the top and I click on communities and local partners, I can say click on mission 19. And what I'll see here is a map of just the mission 19 communities, and down below is a list of them. And for each community, so let's say we go to, I don't know, Athens, Ohio. It jumps down to Athens, Ohio, and you see the main institution in Athens, Ohio that participated is Ohio University. And they reached out with their mission patch art and design competition to elementary schools and middle schools in their area. And we can see that they had 50 undergraduates participating in the experiment design competition, at least 10 proposals. And the mission patch, there were 2 competitions at grades K through 4 and 5-8. Here are the partner institutions, and here are the community program directors and their email addresses. You can read a community profile for over 400 entries on this website. If you then go to flight experiment selected for flight, and you go to say mission 19, and you then go and you look down, you can see the mission 19 communities. And let's say we go to, I don't know, Colorado Springs, Colorado. Okay, what you'll see here is an experiment from the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs that was selected for flight called Fungal Bioleaching in Microgravity, Fungal Approaches to Metal Recovery. And here is a summary of that experiment. And so this is where you find a summary of over 400 SSEP experiments, which is another way to get ideas for how to do an experiment. So what experiment to be done. And just for completeness, if I go back to communities and local partners, the first button, overview of undergraduate participation, if I click on that, this page is an overview of all of the undergraduate institutions that have participated to date and the missions they participated in. And if you scroll down, you can see a summary of their flight experiment, and their strategic needs in STEM education and why they wanted to do SSEP, and then another summary of their flight experiments. And so you can go directly to the undergraduate page and just concentrate on all the experiments that undergraduates like you have done to get ideas. And then if we go to the mission patch main page, or let's say we go to a mission page, let's go to mission 17, for instance. And what you'll see here are all of the communities that participated in the mission 17 mission patch competition. And if you scroll down, you can see their selected flight patches that flew in space. And you can always click on a patch. Let's find a really cool one. that's kind of, very sophisticated. Let's because the high school and undergraduate teams do some pretty cool stuff. I'm not looking for I'm not seeing what I'm looking for, but let me just pick any patch. You click on any patch and you get an up close and personal look on it. And for each community under their patches is a description of how they conducted their mission patch competitions with the total number of students engaged. Here, 1,105 in grades K through 5 and 288 in middle school. And so you can read an overview of over 400 descriptions of how the mission patch competitions operated. And under scientific return and reporting, you can go to, say, mission 13, and you can watch the PowerPoint video of every student team presentation at the conference for this mission. So you can even watch PowerPoint presentations on the experiments. So does everybody see the power of what's on this web page in terms of communities? So you're going to have to dig into the navigation and see where everything is. And if we go back to the main page, I want to leave you with one page before we end, which is under flight opportunities. There is a page, and I don't know if I showed you this yesterday, but let's just go there. Under launch and on-orbit operations history. I told you early yesterday that we were inviting all of you and your faculty and any students involved in mission patch art and design competitions. We were inviting you all into America's space program. This page reinforces that statement because on this page you can see a launch of every SSEP experiment payload, mission by mission, and you can see the astronauts that are part of SSEP, the astronauts that operated the SSEP experiments. And next to each astronaut is a link to their bio and their social media accounts. And if you keep scrolling down, you get to see, yeah, this program is the space program. And the history of this program is remarkable. And it goes all the way back to the final 2 space shuttle flights of the US space shuttle program. Our first payload was on STS-134, which was the final flight of Space Shuttle Endeavour. And our second payload was on STS-135, the final flight of Space Shuttle Atlantis, which is now housed at Kennedy Space Center. And it was the final flight of the US Space Shuttle program. So does everybody got a sense of all of this? And I know there's a lot of material that we covered, but you've got a video library. This is real. This is not some simulation checking off science, technology, engineering, and math. I've provided you an understanding of how to think about coming up with a microgravity experiment, lots of different ways. This should be at this point now straightforward. The hurdle in the road now is you need to open up time soon to go through all of this information, figure out where it all is, absorb it, and start designing your science experiments. So questions, comments?